The Horn of Africa, a region marked by conflict and alliances, is once again witnessing rising tensions. Ethiopia and Somalia, two nations with deeply intertwined histories, stand at a crucial juncture. As recent events unfold, many are asking, are we on the brink of another conflict, or is there a path to peace? For centuries, the vast border between Ethiopia and Somalia connected diverse cultures and empires. Somali tribes migrated freely, seeking watering wells for their nomadic lifestyle. With the arrival of Western powers, borders and national identities began to take form. The enforcement of these national identities, combined with Emperor Menelik's annexation of the Ogaden region in the late 19th century, created grievances between the two nations and would become a source of conflict for generations to come. This animosity erupted into open conflict in 1977 when President Said Barre of Somalia captured parts of the Ogaden region, aiming to create a united Somalia. Barre's military defeat was the start of the darkest part of Somalia's history, which was filled with internal strife and conflict. Fast forward to 2006, Ethiopian troops entered Somalia to fight alongside the transitional federal government against the Islamic Courts Union.
Forces of the transitional government and Ethiopia are in the outskirts of Mogadishu now.
The Ethiopian troops were able to dislodge the ICU from Mogadishu and push them all the way down to the port city of Kismayu. While Ethiopia did undoubtedly help stabilize the transitional government, eventually leading to elections, its troops were met with heavy resistance in urban areas. According to the Ethiopian government, no less than 7,000 Ethiopian troops lost their lives stabilizing Somalia during this period. At the same time, some political analysts claim that the introduction of Ethiopian troops is what turned the Islamic Court Union into a well-organized and funded terrorist group we know today as Al-Shabaab. However, these analysts fail to recognize the impact that the global fight on terrorism had on East Africa and, more importantly, on the evolution of Al-Shabaab.
Our commanders say the Iraqis will need our help. So America will change our strategy to help the Iraqis carry out their campaign to put down sectarian violence and bring security to the people of Baghdad. This will require increasing American force levels. So I've committed more than 20,000 additional American troops to Iraq.
In 2006 and 2007, sectarian conflict and increasing insurgent attacks escalated the war in Iraq, prompting the US to deploy an additional 20,000 troops and a surge strategy. One of the causes for the increase in violence was the expansion of Al-Qaeda globally. You see, during this time, trained fighters from Iraq and Afghanistan were moving to destabilized regions in the world like Somalia in search of safe havens and new recruits. Ethiopia and its Western allies believed that left unchecked, the once faint connection between the founding members of ICU and Al-Qaeda would have been rekindled, creating an ideal situation for Al-Qaeda to flourish and spread its ideology in East Africa. On January 7, 2007, the US bombed locations in southern Somalia, targeting ICU leaders and Al-Qaeda members that were exploiting the country's instability to recruit new members and spread their ideology. Therefore, while some blame Ethiopian troops for Al-Shabaab's growth, others argue that without Ethiopia's intervention, Al-Qaeda would have rekindled its long relationship with the ICU to gain a stronger foothold in the region. Fast forward to 2022. Tensions intensified between Ethiopia and Somalia after the election of President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud.
East African countries are facing security challenges from terror groups such as Al-Shabaab and Daesh. So it is necessary for us to continue working together closely to repel those enemies and save our people.
You see, President Mahmoud wants to re-establish Somalia's position on the world stage as a safe and independent member of the global community. To this effect, he pursued regional security cooperations to combat the threat of Al-Shabaab. However, his choice to visit Ethiopia at the very end of his first foreign trip was seen as a slap in the face by Addis Ababa. Furthermore, his numerous visits to Egypt and Eritrea, which are both currently at odds with the government in Addis Ababa, and the signing of numerous security economic agreements with these nations strained the relationship between the two governments. So it's important that we view the current relationship between the governments of Somalia and Ethiopia through this lens. Ethiopia, feeling sidelined and threatened by the growing ties between Somalia, Egypt, and Eritrea, began to directly engage with Somalia's regional states. This shift in Ethiopian policy toward Somalia heightened tensions between the two nations to a new level. This tension escalated into an open diplomatic spat when in January 2024, Ethiopia and Somaliland signed an MOU where Ethiopia would recognize Somaliland as a nation in return for Ethiopia gaining unfettered access to the sea for the next 50 years. It's important to note here that the actual details of the MOU have not been released. Regardless, from Ethiopia's perspective, this deal is purely economic, and Ethiopia does not wish to annex part of Somaliland. You see, the lack of access to the sea puts Ethiopia's economy at the mercy of neighboring countries and territories that it can't control. For the last 20 plus years, Ethiopia has only used the port of Djibouti for all its imports and exports, and the Ethiopian government at times has accused Djibouti of holding Ethiopia's economy hostage through price gouging and bureaucratic red tape. For a growing nation of more than 110 million, access to the sea is central to its economic development plans and escaping poverty. So the Ethiopian government sees the issue of unfettered access to the sea as key to the survival of Ethiopia. From the perspective of Somalia, the idea of leasing land to Ethiopia brings back memories of historical grievances. Many Somalians view the current MOU between Somaliland and Ethiopia as a threat to their sovereignty, despite Somaliland leasing land to other nations like the UAE. To this day, there has not been any direct engagement between the governments in Ethiopia and Somalia to de-escalate the situation. Both are rigidly holding on to their positions. The potential fallout between Ethiopia and Somalia could have multifaceted consequences. First and foremost, a withdrawal of Ethiopian troops may allow Al-Shabaab to regain control and further destabilize the region. If left unchecked, the terrorist group will likely plan direct attacks on Ethiopian cities and key infrastructures. Next, Somalia's fragmentation, caused by the federal government's inability to resolve political issues with its federal states, could accelerate with other countries like Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Eritrea, and Egypt seeking closer relationship with different political factions or tribes. This could trigger a proxy war in Somalia over resources and political control, further destabilizing the region. Finally, Ethiopia fears that Egypt will use this opportunity to potentially destabilize Ethiopia in hopes of weakening its stance on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. All this being said, it is very unlikely that Ethiopia will completely dismantle and abandon the vast intelligent networks and political alliances that has formed over the last 20 years. On the contrary, there are speculations that Ethiopia might enhance its economic ties with other autonomous federal states, thereby creating a semblance of a united Somalian coalition based on economic integration with its own Ogaden region. As tensions mount and politics take center stage, the question remains: will Ethiopia and the federal government of Somalia find a path to peace, or are we witnessing the prelude to a new conflict? Only time will tell. We would love to hear your thoughts on this issue, so please share your ideas in the comment section. Thank you.